Alright, good day guys. Welcome once again to AGIT Codeworks. Today we are going to be looking at how to work with dates in an Oracle database. Alright, let's get this. Okay, so if you've handled any kind of database or any kind of database administration system, you would observe that date data is very common. It's very common in databases. For example, the date on which an employee was hired, or the date of product expiration date, the date a product was purchased, and so on and so forth. So today we're going to really demystify the whole concept of dates. We'll look how to format dates, how to do a lot of different things with dates. All right, let's move on. So first of all, now the objectives of this particular tutorial will be: number one, we're going to be looking at something we call the sysdate function. Okay, this is basically a way to return the current date, today's date. Basically uses the date on the server, okay, or the system on which the Oracle service is running. Then we'll look at something we call the systimestamp function. So this basically also returns the current date, but this time around with the time. So it will give you the year, the month, the day, hour, minute, and then the second. Okay. Timestamp is common with surveillance cameras. They're usually timestamped in the sense that it shows you not just the date, but the current hour, minute, and second, or a current hour, minute, and second. All right, so we're going to also now talk about how to do arithmetic operation with dates. Why would you want to do that? A lot of reasons. In SQL, there are times you would need to evaluate a date. Example, I want to retrieve some days before an employee was hired, or I want to retrieve how many days for which an employee has worked, and so on and so forth. Or retrieve the date of the next 10 days or next 10 years, whatever, be it as it may. You sometimes have to use some arithmetic operations on a date. Then we will talk about how to format dates using what we call the tocar function. Okay, you might want a date to appear in a particular format. Okay, like example 24th December 2005. You want the month spelled out instead of the usual number format, or whatever format you want a date to appear in. Then we are going to also talk about the Oracle date functions. It's more than one function. Oracle date functions. Okay. All right. So let's go over to our Navigat and then let's see how this works. Okay. So here is my Navigat connected to my Oracle database. If you have not set up your Oracle server environment, I will leave a link in the description for the video where we look how to set up the Oracle server, where you can either install Navigat or SQL Developer. Okay, so all right, so working with dates. So first thing we'll talk about is the sysdate function, like we mentioned in the slides. That one is pretty straightforward. It's a way to retrieve the current date. Okay, I might want to say, okay, let's say select sysdate from dual. Okay, you might be wondering, do we have a table called dual? So basically, dual is actually a dummy table. It's actually your dummy table. It's a dummy table. Okay, this will return today's date. All right, and please, by the way, sometimes third-party softwares like Navigat and SQL Developer might return date formats differently. Okay, like Navigat basically by default will return the date along with the timestamp, but in SQL Developer you would see just the date. And here I could also say select sys timestamp, okay, from dual. Okay, remember this means I'm returning today's date from a dummy table. This dual is a dummy table. It can be used for calculations and things like that. For example, in Oracle, I could just say select 1 plus 1. Because it's not stored anywhere, I can say from dual. So it's a dummy table, or sometimes called a virtual table. So wrong current statement. So you see 1 plus 1 is 2, just to get a particular result. Okay. All right. So back to what we are talking about. The systimestamp is going to return the current timestamp. Okay, so you see here we go. So it's different from the sysdate function. It returns the interval of minute, hour, second, and it even added the GMT, Greenwich Meridian Time. Okay, so that's for the timestamp function. So now we're going to look at how is this useful to us now. So I'll cite an example with working on arithmetic operations with dates. Okay, first of all, let's see what our date record looks like. So let's just first of all get everybody's first name and then the date on which they were hired. So we're going to use the hire date column as a reference point to practice how dates work. Okay, hire date from employees. So here we go. All right, so this is our staff and the date which, on which they were hired. So I might want to say, okay, let's get 4 days, the date of 4 days after each employee was hired. Now, how that works is you can add a number to a date, hire date underscore, hire underscore date plus 5. This simply means I'm adding 5 days to the date an employee was hired. Okay, let's alias it, let's add a column alias, let's just say 5 days after hire. Okay, so this is called the column alias. That simply means it helps to give a column a more descriptive name. So this column will come out as 5 days hired. All right, let's run this. So you see, this is the date the staff was hired. So that's how we hired on this day. And then this other column is 5 days after the hire. All right, then you might also want to say, okay, let's get number of days between two dates. That means we might want to see something like the number of days for which a particular staff has worked with us. So I will go hire underscore, sorry, that will be today's date, sysdate, sysdate, come on, minus the date the person was hired. So basically, when you minus a date, that is this date from another date, or matter of fact, any date from another date, it gives you the number of days in between the two dates. Okay, let's just say, let's call this tenure. That means how long the person has worked with us, the person's tenure, how long he has been in days. Okay, so we might get something in fractions. So if I run this, you notice, wow, see number of days. So they're decimal places. 70,000. 7,046 days dot point something something something. What that basically means is that because of the decimal precision, if I was hired today and the content is to return the difference between today's date and a particular occurrence in the past, what would happen is that because it's not that exact minute and second when the guy was hired that the query was written, so it's going to return a fraction of a day or fraction of a minute. So to sort this out, we could round it up. Remember the round function? We have a function called round. Now when I round, it's going to round up. So we have the number of days for which they all have worked. If you want the query to look a bit more informative, you can concatenate days. What's going on with my typing today? All right, days. So here it is. So we have the number of days they've worked with days concatenated in front of it. All right, so we run this, so you see number of days worked. I put a space here. So you see Stephen has worked for 7,046 days, Nina has worked for 6,219 days, and so on and so forth. So next thing we are going to talk about is how to format our dates. Okay, now why would I have a need to format my dates? Let me just copy this. Why would you have a need to format your date? You might want your date to appear in a particular format that looks more appealing to you. For example, let's look at the default format. Now Navicat usually returns date in this format by default. Okay, in this format by default. That's why I mentioned earlier that most third-party softwares can choose a format with which they return dates. Oracle has its own default format model as well. But you, by the way, can choose your own format model for your date. So supposing I want to see this date formatted in a more appealing way. Example, we'll do this using what we call the tocar function. Okay, I talked about that in the slide. So what we basically do here is this. We are going to call a function called tocar, useful for character conversions. Tocar is a function, so you open and close this parenthesis. Then which date is it working on? You say higher underscore date. Which format do you want the date to appear in? That's the second argument it takes. So in a quote, I can say it start with FM. Okay. So FM basically helps remove trailing zeros and spaces and so on. But the most important thing is the date format. So I want to see the day as a number. Let's say I want to see the month spelled out like this, and then the year y. All right, so this is what you call a format model. So this is a date format model. So I said instead of retrieving this date in the default model, use this model. Okay, this is made possible by the tocar function. Let's see what we get. So I run the current statement. So here it is. So it looks a lot better. So if you notice, Oracle usually uses whatever expression that created a column as the heading. That is why most times you use this kind of expressions to create a column. You give it a heading to make it a bit more descriptive. Okay, so let's return higher date here. So this is a column alias. If you notice, I didn't add the AS keyword. It's actually optional. Okay, in most Oracle textbooks they would call it the optional AS keyword. So I will run it, and then this is it. So this is today's date returned in a more proper format model. Now we could change this up a little bit. You might want to have the th in front of dd to get the format to be retrieved this way. So 17 June 2003, 21st September 2015, just like that. You might also want month to appear as the first three characters for the date, for the month portion of the date. So you see 17 June and so on and so forth. Okay, if you want, so you specify whatever format you want the date to be retrieved in. Okay, now next thing we'll talk about now is what we call the Oracle date functions. Okay, let's hop over to the slide and explain that a bit. So here we have the common date functions in Oracle. We have the first one here called months between. This would give us the number of months between two dates. We have add underscore months. This will give us months between. By the way, we'll take a date here and another date here and return the number of months between them. Add underscore months will add this number of months. This will be a number and this will be a date. Add this number of months to this date. Right? Next underscore day takes a date first of all and then a day of the week. Okay, what it basically will do is to return the next time in the calendar that is that date. It could be a Friday. So if I specify a date and then I specify Tuesday, it tells me the next Tuesday from the specified date. So last day basically returns the last day of the month. Okay, if you say last day and give it a particular date here, it will return the last day of the month. Okay, by the way, one last thing before we move on to date functions, you might also want to retrieve something like number of weeks for which an employee has worked, or number of years for which an employee has worked. Because we already have a way to get number of days, it becomes super easy to evaluate for weeks and for years. So I could say, let me get everybody's first and the last name. All right, I want to get number of days for which they have worked with us. So the higher date here first. Then to retrieve number of, sorry, not number of days, we are evaluating for number of weeks. Okay, so that would be today's date minus the date they were hired, which I've mentioned gives you number of days in between. Then we can literally just say divide the number of days by 7 and we get it in weeks. Okay, to make it also not give me decimal places, I can also use the round function. So I have this returning the number of days, right? divide it by 7, give me number of weeks, then I'm rounding it up to the nearest whole number. So we add the from clause from employees. Right, we are going to alias the column so let's just say weeks. All right, let's do this. So I run this, so you see King has worked with us for 1007 weeks, Kosha has worked with us for 888 weeks. Okay, and I want to display, I also want to concatenate weeks here to make the display a bit more understandable. I could concatenate. The concatenate function joins, this is a join, it joins this character to whatever result is here. Okay, so what we get here is in weeks. Exactly. All right, so something else we might also want to do is, let's say you want to order your results according to who has worked for most weeks. I can say order by. So now this is the first column, this is the second column, this is the third column. So I can say order by 3. What you observe is it's going to display in ascending order. So that means this guy has worked for the most weeks, and it goes up and up till the guy who has worked the most, Dihan, worked for 1133 weeks. I can also reverse this and display in descending order by putting the DSE keyword here, and then I run this, then I get it like this. Okay, all right, so now let's talk about the you can also, let's format this, make it look pretty here. So we have our to_char function, then we'll give it a format model FM. So we want BD MON. All right, that's the format we prefer, so we can get the result like this. All right, so now let's talk about our date functions. Okay, the first one was add months. So what if I want to get the number of months for which every employee has worked with us? Now the reason I cannot evaluate for that arithmetically, or it's not advisable to do that, is because every month does not have the same number of days. Okay, September has 30 days, some months like October has 31 days, and so on and so forth. So how we get that done is this. So let me just borrow this part of the code. Okay, since I'm kind of too lazy to type the whole thing out. All right, so we already understand what's going on here. So now I want to get number of months for which an employee has worked. So I said the function was called the add. Okay, sorry, not add, months between, months underscore between function. So it's going to give us number of months between this date, that's today's date, and the date each employee was hired. All right, number of months, here we go, from employees. All right, let's see what we get. All right, we run the current statement because we have to, so we pick to run current statement, and here we go. So of course I told you it would come out rounded, so to get it in whole number, you nest. Nesting means applying a function to the result of another function. So round, I round up the nearest whole number, so we can run this now, and then we get number of weeks, months, sorry, for which every staff has worked. If you wanted to get it in 2 decimal places, you can say comma 2 here. Hence, the round function can also take two arguments in a case where you want to get the rounded copy, but this time in 2 decimal places. All right, let's do this. So we get it like this, and so on and so forth. The next one we might want to talk about is the add months function. So basically what the add months function does, add underscore months. I told you it adds a particular number of months to a specified date. So add months. So I want to add, let's say, I will not need the round function here. All right, we're adding, let's add 4 months to everybody's date, higher date. Okay, that means it's going to be returning the current date after 4 months has been added to a date. So we could say add underscore month. Oracle is not case sensitive. Take note of that. I could type this in lower or uppercase. It will basically still work. So I want all my staff, their higher date, add 5 months. So I'll call this 5 months after hire. 5 months after hire. All right. Let's see what we get. Okay. So this is the month we have. Okay. So 5 months after 17 June would be this. All right. 17 November. All right. So, but you might also want this to appear in a preferred format, right? So I can still nest. That means nest the to car function to underscore car function. Then we are going to say comma, give it a format model. Okay, dd month. All right, so here we have it. So to re-explain, add months, this is the function. It's going to work on higher date and add 5 months to it and then return the date. But because we do not like the current format it returns the dates in, we nest the total function here, which now enables it to give it to us in this sorry, format model. Got it? Okay, so let's run this. So this is 17 November 23. That's 5 minutes from this date. Okay, the next one is next day. Next day, remember I told you it takes a day and then a particular date and then plus it takes a particular date and then a day of the week and returns the next day of that date. Let me explain this with code. So if we have the next underscore day function, okay, what it basically does is it takes number one a date. Let's use higher underscore date, right? And then we say give us the next Friday after this date. So next day, so this is, so it gives us the date of Friday, the next Friday after this date. I could say Monday, I could say Wednesday, depending. Let's do this. So I run the current statement here, and this is the next Friday. Okay, you might also want to do the date formatting thing. Toka to underscore car. This already returns a date, so Toka can take it as an argument and then give us our format model. Let me just move this down. Our format model would be any format model of your choice. All right, so run this. All right, so this is the next Friday. So I'm going to just alias this column here, and let's just call it next Friday after hire. All right, so this is next Friday after the date they were hired. You can also alias this to give you the more proper descriptive column heading. Okay. Then lastly, the last day function. Last day. So it basically returns a date that is the last day of the week. Last underscore day. So we have higher underscore date here. So last date of the month. So sorry about that. Last date of the month. So we change this to last day of the month. All right, last date of the month. So notice for this month it was 30th June, for this it was 30th, 31st, 28th, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's it for working with dates. I might try to do other, execute some tasks yourself. For example, you might try to retrieve number of years for which all our staff has worked with us. with information given in this tutorial. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I will promptly reply to them messages if you have any question at all. If you found this video useful, at the lower right of the video below it there is a subscribe button. You can hit it so you can stay abreast to subsequent videos from AGIT Codeworks, informative and educational videos. And then I will see you in the next video. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up for a like. All right, do have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.